Hello, everyone. This is Coding Finance. I did actually change my name just to make it something a little bit more relevant to the topic of the channel, and also just for a little bit of help with SEO. Once again, if you haven't already subscribed or liked the video, please do so if you enjoyed the content. But to continue on, actually, before I even continue, just remember, this is not ever a recommendation on which stocks to buy. This is not ever advice on how to trade or how to go about with your stocks. This is just some information that I'd like to share. This is some of my own thoughts. Now, I know that recently, especially today, we saw all-time lows in the stock market, specifically relating to the Bitcoin miners. You could see that, you had, I think it was Riot hitting, I think it was like a $5.50. You had Hive hitting about, I want to say like $3.50. Here it's listed in Canadian, so that's why it's listed as 450 instead of 350. You've also had Hut hitting about $2. So all pretty undervalued positions in my opinion. And so I just kind of wanted to go and talk a little bit about the state of what's going on, and also just kind of the mentality that I feel a healthy investor should have. And so this is more for investors, not traders who are doing like a day trade or something like that, and they're worried that if it were to go down just a few dollars, their position would suddenly wipe them out. So I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about long-term value investing. So going back to I understand that it can be devastating with all of these low prices. I myself hold Hive and Riot in what I feel are pretty good capacities. If you haven't seen my previous videos talking about my positions, you're welcome to do so. I've actually loaded up a little bit more on Riot. It goes back to that saying, when people are fearful, you should be greedy. Be greedy when people are fearful. I think I kind of blundered that. But anyways, you should note that all of these companies, while they are down, if you just look at their financials, I mean, it makes sense. They have enough, with respect to these companies and the companies that I was referring to, and the top 5 miners that I think are out there, they all, have a solid balance sheet. They all have essentially cash or cash equivalents enough to, hold them off for several quarters. If not, they have ways to finance, whether that's, placing taking debt against their essentially their cryptocurrency, because a lot of them are holding thousands upon thousands of Bitcoin. Additionally, they have millions, easily tens of millions, if not over 100-200 million dollars in mining equipment. So there's a lot that they can choose to finance with. So that's not really an issue. The issue is that when the markets go down overall, stocks tend to go down overall. It has nothing to do with the state of the company. It just has to do with the state of the market. And I just want to remind everyone that the market's not a really a good reflection of what's happening in everyday life. So right now we are seeing that inflation is going up, but it can happen that the market right now just happens to follow that trend, that while everyday life is becoming a little bit more difficult with inflation, the market's following that. But it could be kind of like the pandemic, when things were really bad, everything was closing down, that suddenly the stock market was better than ever before. Tons of money was being pumped into there. So I just want people to understand that the stock market is not a reflection of what's always happening. It's just because things are bad doesn't mean the stock market's going to go down. Just because things are good doesn't mean the stock market's going to go up, and vice versa. So that's one thing to consider. The other thing to consider is, what are you doing in the market? Are you value investing? Are you, day trading? What's really your goal? If you are investing, ideally, or myself, because I consider myself an investor, I think of, okay, is this a profitable company? Is this a company that'll have, that'll be able to post net incomes, for the foreseeable future? And also, based off of its current market cap, do I feel that it's undervalued? Do I feel that relative to the cash flows that it's going to bring, is it going to be able to pay dividends, or be able to essentially reimburse me in some manner, whether that's stock buybacks, whether that's the company undergoing more acquisitions, and then being able to increase its market cap overall, and therefore my stock that I hold appreciates. That's something to consider. And so I always break it down into those 2 steps. is it already making money, or is it going to make perpetual incomes or perpetual net incomes? If that's the case, that's a check mark for me. The next check mark is, do I think it's undervalued at its current position? Because you could have an amazing company, but if it's overvalued, then there's no real point in, for myself, there's no real point at why I would want to invest in it. But that's just something I have to tell myself. I see all of these companies still benefiting, drastically. Yes, they're going down in price, but they're a leverage play on Bitcoin. And what's kind of funny is, while all these companies went down 8%, 8%, and 7%, roughly, yeah. So all of these roughly 8%. Bitcoin itself, if you look at Bitcoin price, you'll see that it's stayed relatively flat throughout the day, right? So all of these Bitcoin miners, they're all derivatives of what Bitcoin is, right? So they all essentially take value from Bitcoin. That's all their holdings. That's all what they produce. And so you would think that they would more accurately flow with the price fluctuations of Bitcoin. But a lot of these companies are being priced as if Bitcoin tanked maybe to 15K, 10K. And until that happens, I don't really see these being justified. But that goes back to the idea of the stock market. The stock market is not an accurate reflection of a company's true value. It may regress to the mean from time to time, but a lot of times it'll undershoot it and overshoot it as well. So, and it just has to do with people's psychology. So say, for example, if you know that an asset is worth, let's say, a car, right? So if you bought a car and you know that that car is worth 10 grand, that's the Kelley Blue Book. That's the utility that it brings. So that's what net it should be worth. Now, this is how things can get undervalued and overvalued. Say, for example, it's 10 grand, and someone says, okay, I'll buy it at 9 grand. And then suddenly they think, maybe that's a little bit too high. I don't want to buy it at 9 grand. So the next person that sees that, they say, I don't want to buy it at 9 grand either. Maybe I can get it at 8 grand. And then they say, like, okay, I'll sell it to you at 8 grand. They're like, if he's willing to sell it to me at 8 grand, there must be something wrong with it. Or, I don't really want to hold that. So once again, the actual value of the car is 10 grand, but they're thinking, 8's too much. Now let's go ahead and, exit. And then suddenly the next person hears that and thinks, maybe I can get it for 7 grand. And you can see how that keeps going and going until a point where it's kind of ridiculous. And that's where people start buying again. So like, let's say it continues until it gets to about 4 grand. Well, at that point, you can get 4 grand for your car, significantly undervalued, right? 0.4 price to book. And that's where it's, you get a lot of buyers, and suddenly this person's buying it for 4 grand. This person says, that's a great deal. It's only 40% of its book value. Let me go ahead and buy it for 4,500. Next person says 5 grand. Next person says 7. Next person says 9. Next person says 11. The people that see it at 11 think, wow, this must be a good car. Let's go ahead and buy it at 13. But once again, the price of the vehicle remained the same, 10 grand. The utility was the same. It just so happened that people were pricing it differently for psychological factors. So that's one thing to consider. Just because the stock price is going down, the share price or the market cap is going down, that has no real, in some circumstances, that has no real reflection of the true value of a company. So that's just go ahead and just remember to try and separate the stock price from the fundamentals of a company. And that brings me back to my last point, which is all of these companies at 30,000, they're profitable. So you could go ahead and take a look at their values. Just take a look at that green, 243% increase in revenue. Let's go to net income, which is the important value for me. 373% year over year. A net income, approximately 190%. And Hive right here, 273%. These are just amazing figures that they're posting. So that's just something to consider. I know everyone's acting like the world is ending. This happens very frequently in the stock market. Everyone likes to think that the world is ending. It's a popular opinion. It gets clicks. So I understand why people would want to make those kinds of videos. But if you really think that, there's always ways to, short stocks or, buy some puts. So you could do that, but generally it doesn't end well. So that's just something to consider. If you have that much conviction that things are going down, there are tools to be able to think in that way. So that's, something to consider. But once again, this is not financial advice. This is not a recommendation to buy anything. I'm just letting you know that I see that because the market is going down, these Bitcoin miners are being affected, despite the fact that Bitcoin's relatively stable at around 30K. Now, if Bitcoin were to go down to 10 to 15K, then I think these prices would be reasonable. And that's okay, because I think I'm not really scared or interested in the short-term volatility. I'm here to just make profit in 2025 when Bitcoin appreciates to 100K and so forth. So anyways, that's why I can sleep comfortably at night and, feel, pretty confident in my investment. I don't have to worry about the world ending. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the content. Please like, share, and subscribe if you did. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next video.